You are already on the lower path of the sanctuary, where the rock walls draw close and the air turns cool. A single torch burns beside you, steady and warm, and the spring nearby keeps its constant sound, water slipping over stone in the dark. The flame makes a small private weather around itself, a thin warmth you can feel on your knuckles when you hold your hand near. The rest of the gorge stays cool and damp, as if the mountain is exhaling slowly through cracks in the rock. You walk a few steps toward that sound, letting your sandals find the worn places in the ground. The torchlight makes a small circle on the path, and everything beyond it becomes quiet shadow. Above, the mountain is only a heavier darkness against the stars. Each step is careful without being tense, because the ground is uneven in the way old paths are uneven, shaped by feet and rain and seasons. Pebbles shift under your sole and settle again, and the sound is small enough to be swallowed by the water's steady voice. The spring is there, tucked into its narrow gorge, as if it has been waiting for your hands all evening. Water gathers and falls in a calm, repeating way, and the torch throws moving reflections across the wet rock. You pause close enough to feel the damp coolness on your skin. The air here carries a clean mineral scent, like stone that has been rinsed again and again, and the moisture sits lightly on your eyelashes. The reflections are never the same twice, they slip, break, and rejoin, turning the rock face into a slow, shifting surface. You lower your hands and let the first chill touch your fingers, then cup water and bring it up slowly. It is colder than the night air, clean and mineral tasting, and it wakes small points of feeling in your palms. When you let it fall again, it breaks into droplets that disappear into the darkness below. The cold draws your attention down into your hands, away from everything else, and the sensation is simple and exact. Your fingers tighten and then soften, adjusting to the temperature, and the water leaves a thin brightness on your skin where torchlight catches it. You wash without hurry, touching your wrists, then your forehead, then the back of your neck. The water does not need you to do anything dramatic with it, it simply does what water does. The night continues around you while the spring keeps its own rhythm. You feel the way the cold lingers a moment after you lift your hands away, then fades as your skin warms itself again. A few stray drops slip under your collar and travel down your spine, a brief line of coolness that disappears into wool. The sound of water never changes its intention, it remains steady, as if it has been repeating the same small work for generations. A stone step nearby has a smooth edge from countless feet, and you sit there for a moment. Your cloak gathers around your legs, heavy and familiar, and the torchlight warms one side of your knee. The other side remains cool, the way mountain air prefers. You feel the weight of wool settling, the fibers holding warmth close while still letting the chill touch the surface. The stone beneath you is cold at first, then less noticeable as your body adjusts, and the difference between torch warm and night cool becomes a gentle pattern across your skin. From here, you can sense the valley even if you cannot see it clearly. Mist settles somewhere lower down, pooling in the dark spaces between slopes, and the distant world feels softened and far away. The spring speaks close by, and that closeness makes everything else feel quieter. The valley is more felt than seen, a depth that draws the mind outward without asking it to travel. Somewhere beyond the gorge, the land falls away, and the air seems to carry that downward space in its breath. The mist holds its own silence, turning distance into something tender, as if the world has been wrapped in cloth. After a while, you rise and lift the torch again, careful with the flame. It leans slightly when you move, then steadies, then leans again, as if it is learning your pace. Your steps begin to turn upward. The torch handle feels warmer near the top where heat has traveled, and cooler lower down where your hand rests. When you shift your grip, the wood creaks faintly, and the flame answers with a small, soft crackle. You let your shoulders find an easy position, and the climb begins with no urgency, only the quiet decision to keep going. The path that leads into the sanctuary is older than any single visitor, and it asks for slow walking. Under your sandals, the stones are uneven, sometimes polished at the center and rough at the edges. You let your foot find each stable place before you shift your weight. Some stones feel slightly hollow beneath the surface, worn thin by time, while others remain firm and sharp-edged where fewer feet have touched. Dust lifts and settles with each step, and the torchlight catches it briefly, showing tiny motes that drift like slow sparks and then vanish into dark. As you begin the climb, the torchlight catches on pale surfaces, stone blocks, low walls, and the corners of steps. The light makes them look closer than they are, then releases them back into shadow when you pass. The air smells faintly of smoke and resin, mixed with the cold scent of rock. The resin scent is subtle, as if it has seeped into the stones themselves from years of torches and small fires, and now it rises whenever flame returns. The rock smell is steady and plain, not sweet, not sharp, simply present, like the taste of clean water. Higher up, the sacred path winds in gentle turns. It is not a straight climb, it gives you time, with each bend offering a new angle of darkness and a new pocket of shelter from the wind. You follow those bends without trying to count them. In one turn, the wind touches your cheek and then slips away, in another, the air is still, held between walls. The sanctuary does not rush you upward. It seems built to slow the body naturally, to separate the climb into smaller portions that can be taken one at a time. On one side, a statue base appears as a simple rectangle, and beyond it, something taller rises into darkness. You do not need to see the shape to know it is a dedication, set here with careful intention. In the torchlight it becomes only silhouette and edge, quiet and patient. The base is cold when you brush it with your fingertips, and the stone holds a faint texture, tiny pits, faint scratches, edges softened by weather. Above, the larger shape disappears into night, not revealing its details, only its presence, as if it is content to be known without being examined. A faint movement in the distance suggests other people, but only as small shapes. Cloaks pass slowly on the path below, their torches lower and dimmer than yours, as if they are protecting their flame from the wind. No voices carry clearly, the air is too open for that. You see their lights briefly, then the curve of the path hides them again. The flames move like small, careful hearts in the dark, steadying when the walker pauses, leaning when they step forward. The sanctuary holds them at a distance, keeping everything quiet, keeping faces hidden, keeping the night gentle. You continue upward, and the sound of the spring fades behind you until it becomes a memory rather than a noise. In its place, you hear the sanctuary itself, wind brushing through sparse trees, the soft scrape of your sandals, and the occasional crackle from your torch. The night is wide enough to hold all of it without effort. The wind sound is not constant, it arrives in soft waves, touching leaves and dry grasses, then passing on. Sometimes you hear it along stone edges, a faint whistle that lasts only a moment. Between these small sounds, the quiet feels deep, like an empty bowl that holds whatever the night chooses to place inside. When you pause, the torchlight gathers on a low stone wall, showing its rough surface and the pale dust that clings to it. You run your fingers along the top, feeling cold grain under your skin. The stone holds the day's heat only faintly, most of it has already been given back to the air. Dust smears lightly beneath your fingertips and leaves a thin trace on your skin. The wall's top edge is worn smooth in places, as if many hands have used it for balance, many cloaks have brushed against it, many pauses have happened right here. Ahead, small buildings sit along the path like compact shadows, each one shaped with deliberate lines. Their fronts face the sacred way, and their roofs and columns create simple profiles against the hillside. Even in darkness, they feel like containers, places built to hold gifts that were meant to last. Their presence changes the feeling of the path, the climb becomes less wild and more composed, as if the stones themselves have been arranged into a calm order. The torchlight touches a corner, then a column base, then a lintel, and each piece catches and releases the glow with quiet restraint. You pass them one by one, and in the torchlight you glimpse the pale glint of marble, then the duller surface of stone. Each structure seems to stand in quiet competition with the next, not through noise but through presence. The path between them remains narrow, so you keep your shoulders slightly turned, giving the buildings room. The narrowness makes your movement feel ceremonial even when it is simply practical. Your cloak brushes a wall lightly, and you feel the roughness through fabric. The air between these buildings is cooler, held in shade even at night, carrying the faint smell of stone and old smoke. A short flight of steps lifts you to another terrace, and you slow again. Your breath becomes visible only in the way it cools your mouth and throat. The night is not cold enough for mist, but it is cool enough to be felt. You adjust your cloak at the shoulder and go on. The steps are shallow, but your legs notice the change, the small lift repeated again and again. Each step has a slightly different edge, one smooth, one chipped, one dusted with grit, and the torchlight makes each difference clearer. You feel the wool settle better when you adjust it, the weight distributing more evenly across your shoulder. One building is brighter than the rest when your torch swings toward it, as if its stone holds light more readily. Its shape is simple, like a small temple in miniature, set directly on the path so every pilgrim must meet it with their eyes. You let the torchlight rest on it for a moment before moving again. The brightness is not dramatic, just noticeable, a pale surface that answers flame with a softer echo. The roofline cuts a clean shape against the hillside, and the front suggests a doorway that is closed tonight. You stand long enough to let the glow settle, then shift your weight and continue. The carvings on its exterior are hard to read in motion, and you do not try to study them. At night, details are not demanding, they become texture, and texture is enough. The carved edges catch and release the flame's glow, making shallow shadows that change with every step you take. The shadows slide along grooves and curves, making the stone seem gently alive without becoming anything more than stone. Your eyes register patterns, then let them go, the way the mind does when it is not required to hold on. You move past, and the building falls behind you like a thought that has done its job. In front of you, the sacred way bends again, turning the climb into smaller portions. The torchlight stays close, obedient to your pace. The bend reveals another stretch of wall and stone and terrace, and the sanctuary seems to unfold in layers, each one quiet, each one waiting. Your torch keeps a small circle of certainty on the ground, and beyond that circle the night stays soft and undisturbed. A long wall rises higher up, its stones fitted together in shapes that do not repeat. In daylight, it would look like careful work; in torchlight, it looks like a quiet pattern that never quite settles. You come near enough to see the seams, the way each stone meets another without gaps. The stones vary in size and angle, each one finding its place as if it has been guided there by patient hands. Torchlight deepens the seams into thin dark lines, and the pattern becomes clearer and stranger at the same time, a design that refuses to become predictable. You rest your palm against one of those stones, feeling its cool surface and the slight unevenness of time. A small lizard might live in the cracks during warm months, but tonight there is only stillness. Your hand warms the stone for a moment, and then the stone cools it again. The cold travels into your skin and makes your fingers feel more awake, then the sensation becomes ordinary again. You notice tiny grains in the stone, tiny ridges where weather has worn softer parts away, and the simple honesty of rock remains unchanged. When you step away, the torchlight makes the wall's geometry deepen. Shadows fill the angles, and the fitted stones become a gentle puzzle. Nothing here asks you to solve it, it simply exists, holding the terrace above. The wall does not feel defensive, it feels supportive, as if it is holding the mountain's architecture in place the way a strong shoulder holds a cloak. You let your eyes glide across the pattern once more, then let the torch swing forward to the path. After a while, the path widens slightly, and you notice an open space to one side. It feels like a place for waiting, a place where people might gather when the sun is high, speaking quietly with officials or guides. At night, it is empty, and emptiness feels like a kind of order. The openness changes the sound of your steps, it allows them to travel a little farther before they fade. The air here feels more exposed, and the wind has more room to move, brushing past without catching on walls. You can imagine daylight here, crowds, offerings, movement, but at night it is simply a quiet terrace with nothing required of it. A faint smell reaches you, oil smoke and something sharper, like crushed leaves. You follow it without changing your pace, and the scent grows clearer with each step. It is not overwhelming, it is simply present, woven into the sanctuary air. The oil smoke is familiar, like lamps in a small room, and the leaf scent carries a fresh edge, green even in darkness. It reaches you in gentle threads, then grows steadier, guiding you without needing to call. Up ahead, an altar sits out in the open, and the stone around it catches the torchlight differently, darker, smoother. You approach until you can see the surface shine faintly where the flame reflects. The altar feels like a calm center, built for offerings, built to be seen. The stone's smoothness suggests many hands, many careful placements, many moments of pause. Even now, when it is quiet, the altar holds a kind of readiness, not urgent, simply prepared. Somewhere nearby, a small fire burns, lower than your torch, and its light is steadier. You hear the quiet snap of leaves in flame, then a soft hiss as something resinous meets heat. The scent becomes warmer and more herbal, like laurel crushed between fingers. The fire's light is softer than torchlight, more rounded, less restless. It sits close to the ground, warming the stones immediately around it, and the air above it carries a thin ribbon of smoke that disappears quickly into the night. You stand a respectful distance away and watch the fire do its simple work. The flame does not leap, it stays low, fed carefully, as if someone has decided that tonight should remain gentle. Smoke rises and thins quickly in the mountain air. The sound of the fire is small and steady, tiny clicks, soft crackles, the occasional whisper as a leaf curls and collapses. Your torch, held a little higher, continues to burn with its own quiet impatience, while the low fire seems content to stay close to the stone. When you continue upward, you carry that scent with you. It clings lightly to your cloak, to your hair, and to the inside of your breath. The night holds it without comment, and the torchlight stays patient at your side. The laurel scent makes the air feel slightly warmer even when the temperature remains cool, as if the mind associates it with hearths and lamps and sheltered places. You breathe in once more, then let the scent become part of the background, another layer among stone and wind and flame. Higher still, the ground flattens and opens, and you sense the presence of a larger structure ahead. You can see the first suggestion of columns, vertical pale shapes, evenly spaced, creating a rhythm of light and shadow. Each column catches the torchlight on one edge, leaving the rest in darkness. The columns do not reveal their details at once. They offer only their repetition, their calm spacing, their upright patience. The terrace around them feels more formal, the stones placed with intention, the angles cleaner. You slow, as if your body understands that this place is different. The wind changes here, sliding along stone terraces and dipping into the spaces between columns. It touches your cheek, cool and clean, and then moves on. The wind feels sharper at this height, less damp than the gorge air, and it carries the faintest trace of smoke from torches and lamps. When it passes, it leaves behind a stillness that feels deeper because you have noticed its movement. To one side, the slope rises toward a theater, its seats arranged in curves that disappear into darkness. You do not climb toward it, you only notice it, the way you might notice a quiet hill that holds the day's voices. At night, it holds only shadow and the faint suggestion of stone steps. The curve is gentle, almost like a ripple frozen in rock. Your torchlight cannot reach far enough to touch the higher rows, and the darkness there remains undisturbed, as if the night has claimed that space completely. You let your torch swing upward for a moment, and the stars appear in the gap above the sanctuary. They are steady and thin, scattered across a sky that feels very far away. The mountain's outline is darker than the sky, and the sanctuary sits between them like a calm thought. The stars do not seem to move, though you know they do, slowly, in their own time. They offer no message that needs to be understood. They simply remain, distant and quiet, while torchlight moves in small circles below. When you look back down, the valley is almost invisible, but you can sense its depth. The air seems to fall away beyond the terraces, and mist gathers somewhere below, softening the emptiness. The sanctuary feels suspended, halfway between earth and sky. The mist looks like a pale weight held in the low places, while the terrace stones under your feet feel firm and exact. You stand between these two feelings, depth and solidity, without needing to choose one. You take the last few steps toward the temple's entrance and stop at the base. The stone steps are wide and shallow, worn in the center where countless feet have climbed. The torchlight runs along the edges, making the worn places shine slightly. Your sandals find the smoother center naturally, as if it is guiding you, and the stone feels colder here, less exposed to sun, more protected. The steps hold the memory of many climbs, but they do not insist on it, they simply offer a path upward, one shallow rise at a time. In the doorway, you can see the faint glow of oil lamps inside, much smaller than torchlight and much steadier. The lamps do not throw light far, they create quiet pools of warmth in the dark. You step forward, letting your torch lower so the flame does not fight the lamps. The air near the doorway has a different scent, softened by stone walls and lamp oil, and it feels less windy, more contained. The torch flame leans inward as you cross the threshold, then steadies again when you pause. Inside the front space, the air feels different, still, held by stone. Your footsteps soften on the floor, and the sound becomes less sharp. Somewhere deeper, a lamp wick hisses faintly, and the smell of olive oil becomes clear. The smell is warm and familiar, a quiet domestic scent placed inside a sacred room, making the space feel human without becoming casual. You feel the change in temperature as well, a slight warmth in the air near the lamps, while the stone remains cool. You enter slowly, letting your eyes adjust to the change. The interior opens into a main chamber with very little clutter, and the emptiness makes each sound feel distinct. The floor beneath you is a cool blue-gray stone, smoothed by time, and you can imagine it being washed with spring water on ritual days. The stone reflects lamplight in a subdued way, not glossy, but softly receptive, as if it absorbs the glow and returns it gently. Your own shadow becomes visible here, faint and stretched, moving along the floor with your steps. A few lamps sit near an altar, and their small flames make trembling reflections on the stone. Light slides across the floor like shallow water, then fades into darkness at the edges of the room. The walls rise away, and whatever paintings live there become only suggestion. The lamps create a calm center, and the room seems to arrange itself around that center, light where the flames are, shadow where they are not. The darkness does not feel empty, it feels simply unlit, holding the room's shape in silence. You walk along the side of the chamber where the shadows are deeper, careful not to disturb the quiet. Your torch is no longer the dominant light, it has become secondary, lowered, restrained. The lamps lead now, and their calm feels like a deliberate choice. The torch crackles softly, but the lamp flames answer with steadiness, their small movements barely noticeable. Your steps become slower without effort, as if your body naturally matches the room's pace. In the far corner, a low bench waits, and you sit there with your cloak gathered close. The stone beneath you is cold at first, then slowly less cold as your body lends it warmth. The temple holds the night without changing, as if it has practiced stillness for generations. The bench's surface is smooth and slightly rounded at the edge, shaped by time and touch. Your cloak pools around your ankles, and you feel the warmth your body carries, contrasted against the coolness the stone offers back. A distant murmur reaches you, perhaps an attendant speaking softly, perhaps another pilgrim shifting in their seat. The sounds are human, but they do not carry emotion strongly in this place. They arrive softened by stone and distance, and then fade. The murmur is more like the idea of voice than voice itself, a gentle vibration that never fully becomes words. You hear fabric move, the faint scrape of a sandal, then silence returning. The lamps continue to burn without change, as if they are keeping time quietly. After some time, a shadow passes near the doorway, and you see a figure move, only as a silhouette. A lamp is lifted and carried, and its light swings gently with each step. For a moment, carved objects along the wall catch that moving light and then return to darkness. The movement is slow and practiced, careful not to startle the room into brightness. The light glides over a carved edge, then over the curve of a vessel, then disappears, leaving only the steady lamps again. The silhouette remains anonymous, a function of the sanctuary rather than a person you must know. You stand again, not because you must, but because the body likes small changes. You take a slow walk along the edge of the chamber, letting the lamps guide your pace. The air smells of oil, stone, and faint herb smoke, layered together like simple fabrics. You feel the cool air in your nose, and the slight warmth near the lamps on your fingertips when you pass closer. Your cloak shifts with each step, brushing your calves, and the sound is quiet and soft. Near the back, a narrower passage leads down or inward, but it is not for you. It is guarded not by force but by custom, by the sense that some spaces are meant to stay untouched. You pause at a respectful distance and simply feel the cooler air that seems to drift from that direction. The air there is distinctly colder, and it carries a dampness that the main chamber does not. It feels like the breath of deep stone, like a place where water has traveled through rock for a long time. You do not lean forward, you simply notice, and the noticing is enough. The coolness carries a damp mineral scent, as if deep rock holds hidden water. You do not need to imagine anything more than that. The mountain exists beneath the temple, and the temple exists above it, and the night holds both. The thought settles easily, a simple layering of stone and air and flame. Nothing needs to become a story. The sanctuary does not demand an explanation, it offers quiet surfaces and quiet depths, and both can remain as they are. When you return to the main chamber, the lamps are still steady, their flames unchanged. The torchlight outside the doorway flickers more actively, restless in the breeze, but inside the lamp flames are calm. It feels like a small lesson in contrasts, given without words. You notice how the torch flame seems to lean and shiver, while the lamps barely move, protected by walls and still air. Even your breath feels different here, less tugged by wind, more contained, as if the room is holding it gently. Later, an attendant gestures quietly toward a side space, a place to rest, away from the main chamber. You follow at a slow pace, your sandals whispering across stone. The lamp in the attendant's hand paints a narrow path of light, and everything beyond remains soft darkness. The corridor feels slightly warmer than the main chamber, perhaps from a brazier somewhere ahead, perhaps simply from being smaller and sheltered. Your shadow follows you along the wall, faint and elongated, joining the attendant's shadow and then separating again when the lamp swings. The side space is smaller and warmer, protected from the open air. A simple brazier glows faintly, more for comfort than for ceremony. Someone has left a folded cloth and a place for your cloak, as if the night has been planned with care. The brazier's warmth is gentle, not hot, it reaches your hands first, then your face, then the front of your chest. The glow is a steady red-orange heart, and its light is lower than the lamp's, coloring the stone near the floor with a soft, ember shade. The folded cloth looks pale in the dimness, and the place for your cloak feels like a quiet invitation to let weight go. You sit and let your shoulders loosen, the way they do when the climb is finished. A small cup of watered wine appears, offered without ceremony, and you accept it by touch rather than by meeting anyone's face. The drink is mild and warm, and it settles gently inside you. The cup feels smooth in your hands, warmed slightly by whoever carried it, then cooling as you hold it. The first sip is quiet, and you taste more water than wine, a thin sweetness and a faint sharpness that fades quickly. The warmth travels down your throat and becomes a small steady feeling in your chest. Outside, the sanctuary continues its quiet work. Torches on the paths drift like slow fireflies when someone passes, and then disappear behind stone. The wind moves along the terraces, touching corners and edges, then leaving them alone again. From this sheltered room, those movements feel distant, as if they are part of a larger rhythm you do not need to follow closely. The brazier keeps its faint glow, and you listen to the soft shift of charcoal, tiny clicks and settling sounds that suggest heat without asking attention. After a while, you step out once more, drawn by the open air. The torch you carry now is not new, it has been burning for some time, and its flame has learned a softer shape. It makes a humble sound, a quiet crackle, and it lights the stones at your feet. The torch feels slightly lighter now, its resin consumed little by little, and the smoke is thinner, less sharp. When you lift it, the flame leans and then finds balance again, as if it has grown accustomed to the night wind and no longer argues with it. You walk along the terrace near the temple, keeping to the edges. The columns rise nearby like pale trunks of stone, and the spaces between them are deep and calm. Above, the stars seem sharper here, as if altitude trims away anything unnecessary. The stone underfoot is flatter on this terrace, arranged with more certainty, and your steps sound softer, less gritty. The columns catch starlight on their upper portions, a faint pale sheen, while the lower parts glow softly when your torch passes close. The spaces between columns feel like cooled air, like shadow collected and held. Farther off, you notice a few sleeping shapes under a covered porch, wrapped in cloaks. They do not speak or shift much, their stillness is part of the night's design. The sanctuary welcomes many kinds of waiting, including this simple kind. Their torches are out, and the darkness around them is deeper, but the porch roof holds the shape of shelter. You hear only the faintest sound of breath if you pause long enough, and even that seems to belong more to the night than to any one person. You continue your slow circuit, as if you are part of the watch without being officially named. You listen for the small sounds of night, the faint clink of a lamp chain, the soft step of a sandal, the distant call of an owl. The torchlight keeps its quiet work, and nothing needs to be remembered. The owl call is far enough away to be gentle, a single note that rises and then disappears. Somewhere a lamp chain responds to a shift of air, a tiny metal sound that is quickly swallowed by stone. Your own sandals make a soft scrape and then fall silent when you pause. When you reach the long fitted wall again, you pause and look down over the edge. The valley below is a soft darkness, and the mist within it looks like a low, pale shadow. Somewhere far away, beyond hills and unseen roads, the sea exists without being seen. The valley feels like a bowl filled with night, and the mist like a thin cloth laid over it. You cannot hear the sea from here, but the idea of it is steady, a distant presence that does not require sight. The air rising from the valley is cooler, and when it touches your face it feels like the world below breathing upward. The thought of the sea brings a sense of distance and continuity. Waves keep their own rhythm whether anyone listens or not, and that steadiness seems to reach even here. In the sanctuary, the night mirrors that steadiness in stone and flame. The torch flame, small and near, becomes your immediate rhythm, crackle, glow, sway, while the sea becomes a far rhythm imagined and trusted. Between them, the sanctuary holds its quiet geometry, terraces and walls and steps, all shaped to endure. You turn back toward the central path and walk down a short distance, letting your legs enjoy the easier slope. The treasuries stand in darkness along the sacred way, their fronts closed, their insides hidden. They feel less like buildings and more like quiet boxes of devotion. Descending changes the feeling in your knees, a gentle relief, and the torchlight glides over familiar stone edges in reverse. The buildings seem to watch without watching, their doorways dark, their columns pale only where flame touches them. In the torchlight, you catch a brief glint of metal, perhaps a small dedication near a wall, perhaps only a trick of flame on stone. You do not stop to investigate. At night, the sanctuary offers only what it chooses to offer. The glint appears and vanishes, and the mind lets it go easily, like a spark that rises and goes dark. Your attention returns to the reliable things, the step underfoot, the air on your face, the torch's steady heat. A low rock outcrop appears between buildings, shaped like a natural platform. You pause near it and feel how it faces the path, as if it were made for speaking. Tonight, it speaks only through silence, and silence is enough. The rock's surface is cool and slightly rough, and it holds a faint dryness compared to the damp gorge stones below. You imagine how daylight might make this a place where sound carries, where words could reach people gathered nearby. In this hour, it holds no voice, only the shape of a place that could hold one. You sit on a step nearby and let the torch lower, so the flame does not strain. The light pools on the stone, showing dust and the faint marks of wear. Your breathing becomes the most noticeable sound close to you, steady and simple. The step is wide enough to sit comfortably, and the stone edge presses lightly beneath your thigh. You feel the rhythm of breath without needing to adjust it, air in, air out, coolness entering, warmth leaving. The torch crackles softly, then quiets, then crackles again, as if it is speaking in a language of small sounds. As the night deepens, the air cools further, and your cloak becomes more important. You pull it closer around your shoulders and feel the wool's weight. The sanctuary feels calmer with the cold, fewer people move, fewer flames travel the path. The wind is gentler now, or perhaps simply less noticeable because you are sheltered between buildings. The stones feel colder through your sandals, and the torch warmth feels more precious, a small portable sun. When you stand again, you take a longer route, looping toward the lower terraces. The steps down are gentle, and the torchlight makes each edge clear. In the distance, the spring sound begins to return, faint at first, then clearer. The descent feels like returning to something simple: water, rock, the enclosed air of the gorge. With each terrace, the sanctuary's built shapes soften into the mountain's natural shapes again. The torchlight becomes more reflective on damp stone as you approach the spring, and the air grows cooler and wetter. Back at the gorge, the Castalian water is unchanged. It slips along its channels with the same quiet persistence, and it catches torchlight in shifting patterns. You lean close enough to feel the damp air on your face. The reflections here are more lively, broken by ripples and the uneven rock. Water sound fills the gorge and makes it feel smaller, more intimate, as if the spring is speaking directly to you. The torch flame leans slightly toward the damp air, then straightens, continuing without complaint. You rinse your fingers again, not from necessity, but from habit. The cold water makes your hands feel awake, then relaxed, then simply present. Droplets fall from your fingertips and vanish into the dark. The sensation is clean and immediate, cold, then tingling, then warmth returning. Your fingertips trace note-like patterns in the water, small circles that break the surface and disappear. The spring does not change, it continues its steady flow around your brief touch. A small stone basin shines where the torchlight hits it, and the rest remains shadow. You listen to the water's small variations, faster over one edge, slower in a calmer pocket. The night continues on its own, and the spring does not ask anything from you. The basin's rim is smooth, worn by countless hands, and the torchlight turns it pale and bright for a moment. The shadows beyond are deep and gentle, holding the gorge's shape without revealing its full depth. After a while, you begin the climb again, but more slowly than before. Your legs already know the path's angles, and that familiarity makes the ascent feel softer. The sanctuary above feels less like a destination now and more like a steady place that will still be there when you arrive. The torch feels heavier in your hand, not in a burdensome way, but in a steady way, like an object that has been carried long enough to become part of your posture. Your footsteps find the worn stones with quiet confidence, and the air on your face feels the same as it did before, only slightly colder. On the sacred way, the treasuries are darker than before, as if the night has thickened around them. Your torch makes only a small claim on the darkness, and the buildings accept it without changing. You pass with quiet respect. The torchlight touches a corner and then retreats. It cannot hold the buildings for long. The structures remain themselves, still, closed, durable, while you move through them like a passing shadow. A distant torch appears higher up, moving slowly across the terrace near the temple. For a moment it flares, then steadies, then disappears behind a column. The movement is unhurried, the way all movement becomes when there is no need to impress anyone. You watch the small light briefly, then let it go, trusting that the person carrying it knows the paths and the corners. The flare could be wind, or a shift of grip, or a fresh angle of resin catching fire. It settles again, and the terrace returns to being mostly starlight and darkness. You reach the higher terrace again and feel the wind more strongly. It slides across your face and hands, cool and clean, and carries the faint smell of smoke from a brazier somewhere nearby. The air at this height feels thinner, as if the mountain keeps it refined. Your cheeks cool quickly, and you pull your cloak a little tighter without breaking stride. The smoke scent is not heavy, it is a thin trace that tells you there is warmth somewhere, somewhere sheltered, somewhere tended. The temple's columns stand close, and you walk between two of them, letting the stone shelter you from the wind for a moment. The torchlight touches the nearest column and makes its surface glow softly. The rest of the row fades into darkness, one after another. The column's stone feels smooth where you pass close, and the torchlight reveals faint vertical lines, subtle textures that run along the surface. In the space between columns, the wind quiets, and your breath sounds a little louder for a moment before it settles again. Inside, the lamps still burn, their flames modest and steady. You step into the main chamber again and feel the air settle around you, held by walls. The blue-gray floor takes the lamp glow and returns it as a gentle shimmer. The room seems unchanged, but you notice how the lamp light has shifted slightly, as if oil has lowered or wicks have been adjusted. The shimmer on the stone resembles a quiet moving surface, like water that never splashes. Your torch feels too bright here, and you keep it low, letting the lamps lead. You sit on the bench again, and your body recognizes the cold stone, then adjusts. Somewhere in the chamber, a pilgrim shifts their cloak, and the fabric makes a soft, dry sound. No one speaks loudly, the room discourages it with quiet certainty. The bench takes your weight without sound, and the stone coolness spreads into your legs and then becomes ordinary. The pilgrim's movement is brief and then still again, and the chamber returns to the simple arrangement of light and shadow. Time blurs in small ways here. A lamp wick shortens almost imperceptibly as oil feeds it, and the flame stays patient. The darkness in the far corners does not move, it simply remains dark. You find yourself noticing tiny changes, the faint thickening of shadow near the floor, the way the lamp glow rests more on one side of the altar than the other. The room holds these changes without announcing them, and your mind does not need to hold them either. Later, an attendant moves along the edge of the chamber, tending to a lamp. The action is small: a hand adjusts the wick, a vessel is lifted, oil is poured carefully. The light grows slightly steadier, and then the figure retreats again. You hear the softest sound of liquid, a quiet glug that becomes silence immediately. The flame responds with a subtle steadiness, no longer flickering even when a faint draft passes. The attendant remains a silhouette, face hidden, motion practiced and gentle. You stand and walk once more, letting your feet trace the room's perimeter. Your fingertips hover near the wall, not touching, feeling the coolness radiate. The painted scenes, if they are there, remain private in the darkness, as if reserved for daylight. Your steps are measured, and each one creates a small sound that fades quickly, absorbed by stone and air. The wall's coolness is a presence you can sense without contact, a quiet temperature that seems to belong to the mountain itself. Near the back passage, the cooler air rises again, and you pause as before. The damp mineral scent is steady, a reminder of deep rock and hidden fissures. You do not step closer than custom allows, and custom feels gentle tonight. The coolness is like a thin stream of air flowing upward, as if the passage is breathing slowly. You stand and let it touch your face for a moment, then step back, letting the main chamber's slightly warmer air return. You return to your resting space and settle near the brazier, letting its low warmth reach your hands. A quiet cup of water waits, and you drink without hurry. The sanctuary has a way of offering simple things at the right time. The water tastes clean and plain, and the coolness on your tongue feels steady, balancing the brazier's warmth on your fingers. You hold the cup for a moment after drinking, feeling the smooth surface, then set it down softly. Outside, the watch continues in shifts. Torches appear and vanish along the terraces, moving from one gate to another, then down a path, then out of sight. The night is divided in invisible portions, and each portion passes without needing attention. From your sheltered place, you sense these movements more than you see them, light briefly brightening a wall outside, then fading, then returning somewhere else. The sanctuary's rhythm is slow and regular, not strict, simply consistent. You lie down with your cloak folded under your head, and the stone beneath you feels firm and cool. The brazier glows with a steady red heart, and the rest of the room stays dim. Your breathing becomes slower, not because you command it, but because the night invites slowness. The cloak under your head provides a small softness, and you feel the texture of wool against your cheek. The cool stone supports you without giving way, and that steadiness makes your body settle, muscle by muscle, into a quieter shape. In the quiet, you hear the sanctuary's smallest sounds. A lamp wick ticks softly as it burns, and somewhere a piece of charcoal shifts in the brazier with a faint crack. Outside, wind brushes against stone corners, then moves on. The sounds are spaced out, never crowding each other, and the room feels wide enough to hold them all without effort. The air carries a faint scent of smoke, not sharp, more like a memory of warmth that stays close to the brazier's glow. The brazier's embers do not flare, they simply breathe. A thin line of heat rises from them and touches your hands when you lift your fingers slightly. When you lower your hands again, the warmth becomes a softer presence on your skin, as if the air itself is holding it. The lamp's light remains steady, and its small halo does not reach far, leaving most of the room in gentle shadow. After a time you cannot measure, you sit up again. Your body feels heavier, as if it has been borrowing stillness from the room. You stand, adjust your cloak, and step out into the open air. The doorway releases you into a cooler space, and the shift is immediate: warmth behind you, clean chill in front. The torch you carry is steady, but the air outside makes the flame lean, as if it is acknowledging the wind. The stars are still there, and the sky has shifted slightly, though it is hard to say how. The moon, if present, is subtle, more a widening of darkness than a bright disk. The sanctuary's stone terraces hold that pale light in quiet bands. The starlight is faint on stone, but it reveals edges and levels in a soft way, enough to sense the shape of steps and walls without needing torchlight to do all the work. You walk toward the edge of the terrace and look down once more. The valley below remains filled with mist, and the mist looks like a slow-moving thought that has decided to rest. Far beyond, the world is asleep in its own way, and this place remains awake by design. The mist seems denser now, a pale layer gathered in the low places, while the higher slopes remain darker. The difference between heights becomes clearer, deep dark above, softened pale below, like two textures laid side by side. You take a slow turn along the sacred way again, this time listening more than looking. Your sandals make a soft scrape, the torch makes a low crackle, and the wind moves over the walls. The combination feels simple and complete. The scrape of your steps has a gentle rhythm, and the torch answers with its own small sounds, as if each movement of your hand is translated into a faint crackle and then into silence again. Wind passes overhead, touching treetops and stone edges, then leaving you in a pocket of stillness. You pass the small buildings and imagine what they hold, not in detail, but in feeling, offerings left by cities and families, objects placed with hope and gratitude. The buildings do not announce these gifts, they keep them quietly. The night seems to approve of that restraint. Torchlight slides over a column base and reveals dust in the grooves, then moves on. A lintel catches the glow for a breath of time, then returns to shadow. The objects inside remain unseen, and that unseen quality feels appropriate, like something that belongs to the closed hours. Near the altar, the leaf-scented smoke has thinned, but it still lingers faintly. The fire is lower now, mostly embers, tended by someone unseen. It gives off a small warmth and a gentle smell, like dried leaves warmed in a palm. The embers glow in a slow pulse when a faint draft touches them, then settle again, returning to a calm steady red. The smoke is barely visible, only hinted at when torchlight catches a thin thread of it and then loses it. You pause near it and let the warmth touch your hands. The ember glow is red and steady, and it does not need to become flame again to be useful. It simply holds its place, as if it understands how to wait. Your fingers hover above the heat, feeling the gentle push of warmth against cold air. The smell of laurel and resin is softer now, less fresh, more like a quiet stain in the night air. It reaches you, then fades, then reaches you again as wind shifts. As the night deepens further, the chill grows more noticeable. Your fingers cool quickly when you pull them away from the embers. You draw your cloak tighter, and the wool's weight becomes comforting in a practical way. The cloak settles over your shoulders like a warm layer of silence. The cold does not bite, it simply occupies the air, steady and honest, and your body responds by gathering itself inward, conserving warmth without hurry. You return to the temple terrace and stand near the columns once more. The stone looks almost silver in starlight, and the spaces between columns look like deep wells of darkness. You listen and hear almost nothing but wind. The wind here seems to travel in straight lines, guided by stone edges, sliding through gaps, pausing briefly behind columns, then continuing. When it brushes your face, it feels clean and dry, as if it has moved over many rocks before reaching you. Inside, the lamps continue their modest burning, and the main chamber feels unchanged. You step in and sit again, letting the room's stillness settle on you. The lamp glow on the blue-gray floor looks like a quiet pond. The shimmer is subtle, more a soft movement of brightness than an actual reflection. When you shift your foot, the light seems to move with you, then settle again, as if the floor absorbs motion and then returns to stillness. You rest your hands on your knees and feel the coolness of the air on your knuckles. Your shoulders lower slightly, releasing the last tension from the climb. The temple does not respond, it simply remains itself, and that steadiness is enough. Your breath becomes quieter in the contained air. You hear it moving in and out, and then you hear the sound fade, leaving only lamp hiss and distant stillness. After a while, you stand and walk to the doorway, looking out. The sanctuary paths are dim, but not empty. A distant torch moves at a slow pace, then stops, then moves again. The light does not hurry, and nothing here requires urgency. The torch's small flare when it pauses suggests a hand adjusting grip, or wind finding a different angle. Then it continues, calm and unremarkable, a small moving point in the wide night. You step outside and let the cold air touch your face again. It is the kind of cold that feels clean rather than harsh. The mountain holds its silence like a cloak, and the sanctuary rests within it. The cold air clears your senses without sharpening them into alertness, it simply makes everything feel crisp at the edges. Your cloak and the torch's warmth keep the chill in balance, neither one dominating. You follow a path toward a quieter corner of the precinct, away from the main temple terrace. Here, fewer lamps burn, and the darkness feels thicker. The stone underfoot remains the same, worn and steady, guiding your steps. Without many lights, the shapes become simpler, walls as darker blocks against slightly lighter sky, steps as faint changes in level. Your torch provides the only moving circle of brightness, and the darkness beyond it remains gentle, untroubled. In the distance, a round structure is suggested by curves of shadow and a few pale columns. You do not approach closely, you only notice its shape and the way it sits lower on the slope, as if watching the main sanctuary from a respectful distance. In darkness, even architecture becomes a kind of whisper. The curve is enough to register, something circular, something composed, without inviting inspection. You let it remain suggested, like a thought that does not need to become a plan. You turn back before the path descends too far. The sanctuary at night is a place of small boundaries, and you accept them easily. You return to the main terraces, letting the climb be gentle and uncounted. The familiar steps welcome your feet again, and the torchlight picks out edges you have already seen, making them feel even more ordinary. The air grows slightly windier as you rise, and you feel the difference along your cheeks and wrists. At the top again, the theater is still a dark curve, its seats invisible except where starlight finds an edge. You imagine daytime voices there, music, announcements, the hum of crowds, but you do not bring the noise into the night. Tonight, the theater belongs to shadow. The curve of seating feels like a held breath, a shape designed for sound, now holding silence instead. The stones do not ask for imagination, they simply remind you that day and night are different lives for the same place. You walk along the terrace and pass a covered porch where a few pilgrims sleep. Their cloaks rise and fall faintly with breath. Their faces remain hidden, and the night seems kind to that anonymity. The porch roof cuts the starlight, making a deeper shade beneath it, and the sleepers become part of that shade. There is nothing to observe closely, nothing to learn. The sanctuary grants them rest by letting them vanish into shadow. You move on, and the path leads you back toward your resting space. The brazier is still glowing, and the room is dim and calm. You lie down again, and your body settles more quickly this time, as if it has learned the shape of the stone. The cloak under your head finds the same fold, the same soft place. Your legs stretch and then relax, and the cool stone becomes a quiet certainty beneath you. The brazier's warmth reaches you faintly, enough to soften the chill without waking you into alertness. Outside, the wind shifts direction, and you hear it brush the corner of the building. It makes a soft sound, like fabric moving in a slow hand. Then it fades, and another quieter wind replaces it. The shift is subtle, you notice it more in sound than in temperature. The building's stones answer the wind with a faint echo, then return to silence. The brazier continues its steady glow, and the lamp's flame remains modest and unchanged. Time passes in a way that is hard to hold. The lamp flame grows a little smaller, then steadies again after someone tends it. Somewhere on the terraces, a torch is replaced, and the brief flare of new flame lights a wall, then returns to normal. These changes feel distant, like small ripples on a wide surface. You sense them and then let them go, the way the mind releases things that are not needed. The night continues its careful sequence of small actions, each one gentle. You sit up once more, feeling that the night is turning. The air has a slightly different edge now, colder and clearer, as if it is preparing for something without announcing it. You stand and step outside to feel it directly. The cold seems more even, less damp, and it carries a hint of openness, as if the valley air has risen a little higher. Your torchlight appears a little less dominant against the sky, though the stars still remain. The stars look the same, and yet the sky feels lighter at one edge, so faint it could be imagined. The mountain's outline remains heavy and calm. The sanctuary stones look darker now, as if they have absorbed hours of night and become full. The terraces hold their shadows more closely, and the torchlight seems to sit on the stone rather than soaking into it. The world is not waking yet, but something has shifted, a subtle loosening of pure darkness. You walk toward the Castalian gorge again, taking the path down in slow steps. The torchlight moves ahead of you, and your shadow follows behind. The treasuries along the sacred way remain silent, their pale surfaces barely catching the flame. Descending feels easy on your breath, and the air grows slightly damper with each terrace. The path's turns reveal and hide the buildings in gentle sequence, and your torch briefly paints their edges before releasing them back into shadow. At the spring, the water continues as it always does. The gorge holds the sound close, making it richer and more present. You crouch and rinse your hands, letting the cold remind you that you are here, in a body, on stone. The water's cold is sharper now, or perhaps your skin is more sensitive after long hours of cool air. It wakes your fingers in small bright points, then settles into a steady chill that fades as you lift your hands away. You lift a small handful of water and let it run down your wrists. The droplets are bright for a moment in torchlight, then gone. The spring does not care about time, it keeps moving. The water traces thin lines along your skin and then breaks, falling into darkness with soft, unremarkable sounds. Your wrists feel cool and clean, and the sensation becomes part of your awareness for a moment, then slips back into the background. When you stand again, you feel the chill in your fingers, then the return of warmth as blood moves. You turn your face upward and breathe in the damp, mineral air. The night carries the scent of stone and water, and it feels clean. The gorge air is slightly heavier, as if it holds moisture close. You breathe and feel your lungs fill with coolness, then empty, leaving behind a quiet steadiness in your chest. You begin the ascent again, slower than before, as if you are walking through thicker air. Your torch feels heavier, and you hold it close. The path welcomes your familiar pace. Your feet find the worn stones without needing to search. The climb does not feel like effort, it feels like continuation, the simple repetition of steps that lead upward. The torch flame leans in small responses to your movement, then steadies again, keeping you company without demanding attention. As you climb, the sky's faint light becomes a little more certain at the edge, still far from dawn but no longer purely night. The sanctuary stones seem to notice, not by changing, but by revealing slightly different tones. Shadows remain deep, but their edges soften. The difference is subtle. Stone that looked black now looks dark gray, edges that were invisible now faintly present. Torchlight no longer feels like the only light, it feels like the nearest light, while the sky slowly offers a distant one. On the higher terrace, the temple columns stand the same as always. The lamps inside still burn, making warm pools on the floor. You enter and sit in the main chamber, letting the quiet collect around you. The air inside remains still and cool, and the lamp's warmth stays close to their flames. Your presence feels small in the wide chamber, and that smallness is calming, like being one quiet detail inside a larger stillness. The blue-gray stone beneath you feels colder now, as if the night has settled into it fully. The lamplight glides across the floor in small waves of brightness. The room is almost empty of movement, and that emptiness feels intentional. The lamps create a low gentle light that does not try to fill the chamber. It leaves space for darkness, and that space feels like part of the temple's design. Your cloak holds warmth close, and you feel the contrast between fabric and stone. You listen and hear only the smallest things, a wick's faint hiss, a distant footstep, the whisper of fabric. These sounds arrive gently and leave gently. The world does not need a loud story to continue. The distant footstep might be an attendant in another passage or a pilgrim shifting their position. It comes and goes without consequence. The whisper of fabric is like a soft wave, rising and fading. The wick's hiss remains steady, a quiet thread of sound that holds time lightly. Later, you stand and walk to the center of the chamber, stopping where the light is strongest. You look down at the stone and notice the faint traces of wear, the subtle changes in texture where many feet have passed. It is a quiet record, kept without words. The worn places are smoother, slightly lighter in tone, and the lamp glow rests on them in a different way. You can feel those differences through your sandals, smoothness under the ball of your foot, a faint ridge near the edge where stone is less worn. The record is not meant to be read like writing, it is meant to be felt and then released. You step back to the bench and sit again. Your hands rest in your lap, warm inside your sleeves. The lamp flame stays steady, and the darkness in the corners stays deep. The steadiness of the flame becomes more noticeable when you stop moving. It does not flicker with every breath. It simply burns, patient and small, asking nothing from the room. Outside, the sanctuary paths begin to show the slightest hint of shape without torchlight. Walls become more visible, not because they brighten, but because the blackness behind them is no longer absolute. The night loosens its grip slowly, without drama. You sense this through the doorway, through the change in how the outside darkness looks, less like a solid wall, more like an open space. The sanctuary remains quiet, as if it respects the slow approach of morning by not reacting. You step to the doorway and look out again. A torch moves along the sacred way, but its flame looks less dominant now against the softening sky. The person carrying it is only a shape, passing quietly, then vanishing behind stone. The torch's light still pools on the ground, but the pool seems smaller, less dramatic, because the world around it is no longer purely dark. The silhouette disappears at the bend, and the path remains empty, waiting. You return to your resting place and lie down once more. The brazier's glow is dimmer, and the room is cooler. Your cloak covers you, and you feel the weight settle across your shoulders and chest. The weight is steady and reassuring, practical warmth held close. The brazier's embers are fewer now, but they still offer a faint breath of heat. The lamp's light is softer, perhaps from a lower wick, perhaps from oil nearing its end, and the shadows in the room widen. The stone beneath you is firm and trustworthy. Your body finds a position that asks nothing further, and the muscles in your legs loosen. The sanctuary continues its routines beyond your room, but they feel distant now, like wind heard through walls. You feel the firmness under your back and the slight softness under your head where the cloak is folded. The air near the floor is cooler, and the air near your chest is warmer beneath the cloak, creating a gentle layering of temperature. In the quiet, your attention narrows to small sensations. The texture of wool against your skin, the coolness at your fingertips, the warmth that remains near your core. The night outside keeps moving forward without needing you to follow it. The sensations are simple enough to rest on. Wool fibers press lightly against your cheek and forearm. Your fingertips feel cool where they are not tucked away. Warmth gathers inside you, steady and quiet, as if it is held in a small safe place. A last faint sound of footsteps passes somewhere nearby, then fades. The lamp's light is softer now, and the room's shadows grow wider. Nothing in the sanctuary rushes the morning, it arrives when it arrives. The footsteps might be an attendant making one more quiet round, or a pilgrim shifting before sleep. They pass and then vanish, leaving the room unchanged. The shadows remain gentle, not heavy, simply more present as light becomes less. Your breathing stays steady, and the world stays steady with it. Stone holds its coolness. Flame holds its small warmth. Water, far below, holds its patient sound. Even though you cannot hear the spring from here, you can imagine its constancy, the way it continues without the need for witness. The torch is gone from this room now, but the lamp flame remains, small and calm, and the brazier holds its ember heart. The darkness becomes simpler. Shapes lose their edges. The room is mostly stillness now, with only a low ember glow and a faint scent of smoke. Your mind does not need to name the corners or the walls, they can simply be there, quiet and untroubled. The ember glow is enough to suggest the room's boundaries without drawing them sharply. The scent of smoke is thin and familiar, like a final trace of warmth in the air. And as the sanctuary keeps its quiet watch on the mountain, the night continues to deepen and soften, until it feels like one long, gentle moment.